We've all heard the media story repeated over and over again. Farmers are hurting from Trump's trade war, they say, because China has retaliated against President Trump's tariffs on Chinese imports by buying less U.S. soybeans, and that explains why soybean prices are so low. Although the trade war doesn't help soybean prices, the popular narrative just isn't true. At best, it leaves out a big part of the story. At worst, it's a lie. In general, China is demanding less soybeans nowadays because so many of their pigs are dying from African swine fever, or AFS. AFS kills over 90% of the pigs it infects, and it's incredibly contagious. Potentially over 1/3 of China's pigs have been wiped out. That's more pigs than are in Europe. If anything, soybean prices have been temporarily supported as China battles the epidemic because Chinese farmers are switching away from using feed that contains pig meat, which spreads the disease, to feed based solely on soybean meal. But as China's pigs keep dying, China's even buying less soybeans from Brazil, China's alternative supplier of soybeans. The dishonest coastal media has tried to say that the trade war is hurting pig farmers, except China vastly reduced its buying of U.S. pork in 2011. Why? China claimed that our pork was unsafe compared to Chinese pork. That only bolsters Trump's case against China. Not only that, despite tariffs, China's purchases of U.S. pork have gone up this year to hit a record high, not down, precisely because so much of China's pork supply is being wiped out. The other proof that the media is lying? It's simple. Just look at a chart of soybean prices. The big drop occurred in 2014, and prices aren't much different from where they were in late 2014 or 2016. Corn prices also plummeted in 2014, and the farm default rate started picking up in that year too. Other commodities like oil also plunged in 2014. What explains this? The answer has everything to do with U.S. monetary policy. For the first half of this last decade, the U.S. Federal Reserve embarked on 3 separate rounds of quantitative easing, or QE, a fancy term for artificial credit creation. Under QE, the dollar lost its value. Because commodities are priced in dollars, a weaker dollar means the dollar has less buying power for a given commodity, which means higher commodity prices measured in dollars. The Fed ended its last round of QE in October 2014. And the opposite effect of embarking on QE, ending QE meant the dollar moved higher, so the price of commodities measured in dollars went down. But the problem wasn't that the Fed ended QE, it was that the Fed began QE in the first place. The Fed's QE programs made soybean and corn prices artificially and temporarily high, which tricked farmers into overexpanding. And the overexpanding looked even more attractive because the Fed's bad monetary policy also made debt cheap, increasing the incentive for farmers to take on too much risk. Of course, without the Fed's intervention, the business cycle would still exist, and there would still be farm defaults. This is a good example how, contrary to popular opinion, the Fed's attempts to fix the problems it created during the previous business cycle only exacerbate the next business cycle. That makes booms and busts more pronounced, painful, and less redistributive than they would exist in a free market capitalist system. There is one thing that the politicians in Washington can do right now that would help Minnesota farmers, though. Pass the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Trade Agreement, or USMCA. But Democrats in the House have blocked USMCA because they don't want to give President Trump a win right before the 2020 election. Why isn't the media talking about that? With Alpha News, I'm Willis Krumholz.